Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Amy Haynes and I am the Marketing Manager for Communication Products here at Macmillan Learning. I'm joined today by my colleague Heather Halter-Kimball, who is our Learning Solutions Specialist. Heather will be taking us through the product demo in just a few minutes. This is the third week in our April series of brief webinars where we are highlighting some of our favorite digital resources for communication. Everything you'll see today is available in LaunchPad, which is our online platform that delivers an ebook, homework, activities, and other learning resources. In each webinar, we're focusing on just one feature in LaunchPad that will help you better engage your students. Heather will provide a demo that will last about 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. Our goal is to make these sessions brief and useful for you. So this week's topic is building quizzes and tests in LaunchPad. You'll see how to use the available questions in LaunchPad to create your own effective assessment. If you are brand new to Macmillan and you've never seen anything in LaunchPad, welcome. We're glad you're here. And if you've used our books but maybe haven't ventured into the digital realm, or if you've used LaunchPad but haven't had time to explore all the features, we're glad you're here too, and we hope you might learn something new. The idea is that there is something for everyone here. Before I pass things over to Heather, I want to go over just a couple housekeeping items for using this GoToWebinar platform. So what you see on the screen here should be appearing on your own screen. It's your attendee control panel, and it should be hanging out somewhere in the top right of your computer desktop. So by default, you've been connected using your computer's speakers. If you can hear us, and everything sounds fine, you should be all set. If you prefer to call in on your phone, you just come here and click this phone call button, and then a new window will pop up and tell you what phone number to dial. You may also notice that you're muted, and that is just an automatic setting to cut down on background noise, but we will easily unmute you when it comes time to ask questions. Speaking of questions, there are a couple of ways you can engage with us while we're on this webinar together. You can use the raise hand feature, which you'll see looks like a little hand, and it's on this sort of stripe that hangs out at the top left of your control panel. Click that, it will signal me, and I will unmute you. You can ask a question or say what you need to say, and we can help you that way. You are also welcome to use the question box, which is on the bottom half of your control panel. At any time that we're on the line today, you just type in your question, click send, and then I will get that, and I'll either type an answer back to you or maybe hold your question if it makes sense to ask to the larger group. So with that, I will pass things over to Heather.
Okay, great. Thank you, Amy. And again, welcome to everyone. Very glad you're here. I did want to take just a brief minute to provide a little more information about me and what I do, and then we will dive right on into what you guys came for. Again, my name is Heather Halter. I'm your Learning Solutions Specialist for Communication with Macmillan Learning, which basically means that I provide training and pedagogical support for instructors using our LaunchPad products, or of course, if you're not familiar with LaunchPad, our online platforms that go along with our textbooks. They're meant to, enhance your class and the student's reading experience. Before coming to Macmillan, I got my master's in communication from the University of Central Florida. And I actually wrote my thesis on using social media in the classroom. So the idea of using technology while teaching is something that's been an interest of mine for years. On top of that, I taught public speaking for 5 years in a variety of formats, face-to-face, hybrid, and online. And most recently, as the course director at Full Sail University, I led our department's implementation of speech class, which was the predecessor to LaunchPad. So I used media, and now I get to help instructors incorporate it into their courses as well. So it's a pretty great gig. So what we're going to look at today is how to do, or I should say why and how to do quizzing and testing within LaunchPad. Now we're throwing around this LaunchPad word. I do want to provide you with just a very quick overview before we dive into the quizzes. Now, what we're looking at right now is a LaunchPad homepage. I'm currently looking at LaunchPad for a pocket guide to public speaking, but know that the functionality will be the same across all of our textbooks. The only difference will, of course, be content is tailored to a specific text. But everything on the home page here is divided up by chapter. So it's really easy for you to come down here, expand open a chapter, and you can check out the resources that we have at that particular chapter. Anything you want to check out, just click and open to preview it. In this case, here's one of our video activities where we have a clip from a speech followed by multiple choice questions. Anything you want to set up in here as a homework assignment for your students, simply click on the Assign button, give it a due date, make sure it has a point value, and then click Assign. And that chapter that you assigned an activity from will jump towards the top of the table of contents here. It becomes highlighted in blue. And then, of course, we can see that activity now has a blue To Do button next to it. And that's as easy as LaunchPad is. Worth noting that if you want to learn more about LaunchPad, and we'll reiterate this again at the end, I'm happy to meet one-on-one with you to help you get your course set up or just start exploring the resources in here. And additionally, next week, we are going to be hosting webinars to focus on the book-specific features for different courses. So feel free to attend one of those to learn more about LaunchPad for your specific book. With that then, let's go ahead and turn our attention specifically to quizzes and tests. Now, why should you do your quizzes and tests within LaunchPad? And I have one word for you, but I'm going to repeat it 3 times. Auto-grade, auto-grade, auto-grade. Quizzes and tests given within LaunchPad are automatically graded by the system. So it saves you the hassle of having to hand grade or maybe track down the Scantron machine on campus. I know when I was an adjunct, it took me like hours to find it. And then my students had different Scantrons than the machine took, so I had to grade them by hand anyway. That was a fun day. Auto grade. LaunchPad does the work for you, and we want to make it as easy on you as possible. Anything that's completed in LaunchPad, including quizzes and tests, the scores will automatically track into your gradebook, whether it's the LaunchPad's built-in gradebook or your LMS's gradebook if you choose to take that route. It is similar to building tests and quizzes within your own LMS system, Canvas, Blackboard, D2L, but you don't have to worry about the hassle of finding the test bank, downloading it, uploading it into your LMS, and then doing it. Everything is really easy to do all in one place here in LaunchPad. They are also fully customizable, so you can create the exact test that you want. There are options to help deter cheating, which I know is always a good thing. And many campuses also have campus testing centers so that you don't even have to spend class time on doing exams. You can send students there, they can do it at their convenience. So with that then, let's go ahead and take a look at how we approach quizzing and testing within LaunchPad. Worth noting that in many of our LaunchPads, we do have pre-built chapter quizzes. So you can technically just use these as is, make it even easier on yourself, but also good to know that they can be edited as well. And to edit quizzes, we're going to walk through the same steps that I'm about to walk you through for completely building something from scratch from our own test bank. Now, the first place we want to go is to find the Add New button. If you've already started setting up your LaunchPad assignments, it's going to live on the same line as Unassigned over on the right. If you haven't set anything up in LaunchPad yet, if your course is brand new and fresh, it's going to be one of the first things you see right at the top of the table of contents. So we're going to go to Add New. On this list of items here, we're going to select Quiz. And even though technically, yes, in LaunchPad this is called a quiz, you can certainly build a more comprehensive test using the same features. In fact, we'll go ahead and make this more along those lines as well. So once we've selected quiz, what we're going to do is basically work our way through these 5 tabs in the upper left corner of the screen. The first one we start out with is basic info. So go ahead and give your quiz and test a name. I'll go ahead and let's make this our final exam. You can add some sort of subtitle there, and you can include any directions to your students that you'd like here as well. We click Save, and then we're going to move on to the next tab here. Now this is where you have the option to browse through our test bank that's built right into LaunchPad, and you've got a lot of different search options here. Most commonly used will likely be the chapter setting. Let's say I want to pull questions from chapter 2 here. I just selected on the list, but you can also choose to search questions by question type, essay, fill in the blank, or multiple choice. You can choose the difficulty level of the question, easy, moderate, or difficult. And if it's something that you incorporate into your teaching, you can also select questions according to Bloom's taxonomy level. Each question is going to be tagged with a different level. Worth noting that many of them do fall under the remembering and understanding steps, but there are a couple for the higher level as well. And then your last option here is to select questions for pre-made assessment. So this refers back to those chapter quizzes that are already built. One way that this could be used is maybe as an instructor, you have your students complete the pre-made chapter quizzes throughout the semester. And then when it comes time for midterm or final exam, you don't want to give your students completely brand new questions. You just want to ask them questions that they've already been quizzed on at some point. That's where this can come in handy. I'm going to go ahead. I've made my selection. I want just questions from chapter 2, and then I'm going to click Apply Filters, the big blue button here. And then all of the questions that meet my parameters will show up right in the middle here. You're just going to see a little blurb and the metadata here. So if you want to actually read the questions and see the answer choices, you can click on Expand All, and that will open it up so you can read things a little bit better. Now, as you're scrolling through here, if there's any questions that you want to add to your quiz or test, you simply check the box next to the question that you want to include, and feel free to select as few or as many as you want, skip around, select all of them, whatever you want to do. There is a select all button if you just want to flat add all 25 of these questions. But once we've selected our questions, we then go to Add Checked To, and we select Add to Quiz. And you can see now that those questions sort of grayed out in the middle here because they've already been added. And we'll take a look at them next on the Review and Modify tab. I do want to mention real quick, if you saw under Add Checked To, oops, need to actually have something checked. We do have the option for question pools, and I'm going to revisit that once I get through all these kind of basic steps here. Of course, then, like I said, we can make this cumulative, so I'm going to come back over to my filters here. I'm going to remove my chapter 2, and let's say I now want to pull questions from chapter 3. Apply filters, and again, then now here's my chapter 3 questions. Let's say, you know what, I want them to answer all of this. Speech anxiety is important. So let's click Select All, Add Checked to Quiz. Okay. So then, and you can of course keep repeating that process for as many chapters as you'd like. I'm then going to go to the next tab, which is Review and Modify. And you can see I've got this little number 30 right next to it. That means that I've added 30 questions to my test. And here, this just gives you the opportunity to read through everything in the order that you sort of built it. You do have options here, though. If you'd like, you can choose to edit the wording on a question if you want to make it a little more specific to how you discussed a topic. If you want to change the order of a question, you can click Move and select for it to go down there. Or if you've gotten in here and decided, you know what, I don't want to include this question on my quiz, you can click Remove, and then it's gone. One other feature I want to point out, though, is you also do have the option to create a new question as well. So if maybe you've got your own personal question you want to add in alongside the test bank questions, you can certainly do that. And we do also have a print option in here in case if you want to have a hard copy of the exam as well, just for your reference. The next tab is my personal favorite because this is where we can really have a lot of cool options, and that's the Settings tab. The first thing you can do is select the number of attempts. Chances are if this is a midterm or final exam, you're going to only want to allow them to take it once. But if you're like me, I used to approach at least chapter quizzes as sort of, you know what, I just want you to spend time with the content. I don't really care about accuracy and those sort of things. So I allowed an unlimited number of attempts and allowed students to track just their highest score so they could go back and redo the quiz as many times as they felt. You can also add a password. You can impose a time limit. You can choose how the questions are delivered to your students. In this case, we've got our 29 questions here. Do you want your students to see all 29 questions at once on one screen? Or do you want them to have to just answer one question and then move on to the next? This save and continue box is actually really important depending on, again, your approach to quizzing and testing. If this box is checked, that allows students to answer questions, save their progress, and then exit out of the test and come back at a later time. Now, if you like doing open book exams, that can be a good way to allow students to go exit, read the ebook, and then come back in and complete this. But if you want them to have to just sit down and do it all at once, make sure that you uncheck that box. For scrambling, we have two options. You can choose to randomize the question order. So what is question number 2 for one student will be question number 10 for another student. And you can also choose to randomize the answer order within the questions as well. So what question has an answer A for one student, it's going to be C for the other. And then you can also select how students see their feedback and score. If you have it set to every attempt, that means that as soon as the student finishes their exam or quiz, they are going to automatically see their answers, whether they were right or wrong, how many points they got for each question. You can choose to show them what the correct answer is, and you've also got the option to include feedback as well. Some questions do already have feedback tagged in it, so that would automatically go to your students. You also have the option to wait to show any of this stuff until after the due date has passed. Again, if it's a final exam, maybe you want to keep students from getting the correct answers out there. And of course, if you feel, you can also say never. Worth noting though that even with never selected, your students will still be able to see their overall score. So if they got 9 out of 10 questions right, they'll see that they got a 90%. The last option down here is visibility. By default, all quizzes and tests are visible to students as soon as you build it. But if you want to keep them from working ahead, or maybe you want to keep a final secret until the end of the semester, you can select hide from students, and whenever you're ready for them to come in here, just move it back to visible. Or there's also the option to hide from students until a particular date. And this means that it will automatically open up in LaunchPad on whatever day that you choose. Let's say that you only want your students to work on their final on May 3rd, starting at, why won't my clock pop up? Let's say 1 o'clock. One sitting up at the top of the page, I want to jump back to real quick. Worth noting that if you have any accessibility issues in your class, you can allow for different settings for individuals or groups of students. So if you maybe have some students who need additional time on a quiz or anything like that, you can certainly make exceptions there. Lastly, we move to the assign due date page, and this is going to look very similar to when we set up activities at the start. So simply pick your due date, You can allow for a grace period, an email reminder, but the most important thing here to include is your point value. You can choose to add a gradebook category as well. And then all you have to do is click Assign, and we're done. You can go to Done Editing and do one more review of all the questions that you've added, and it'll show you all the policies that you set up for your students as well. And worth noting that, of course, these scores will track to your gradebook, but if you wanted to come in and check out the students' individual results, you can come up to this results button. I don't have any sample students in here, so that's why that looks blank. But you can always see how students did on individual questions in addition to just the overall score. So that's it. That's how easy it is to build an exam in here. It seemed to take a little while because we walked through all the options, but of course, once you get the hang of it and you've come in here and done it once or twice, it really kind of becomes second nature. Real quickly though, before we wrap it up, I did want to go back in and show question pools because I personally think it's a really neat option. To go back into edit my quiz, I'm going to click on edit in the upper right corner, and I'm going to jump back to the search questions tab. Now remember, I built my exam here from chapters 2 and 3 so far. Let's say I also need to include chapter 4, but I'm not really too concerned which specific questions they answer. What I can do is set up a pool of a certain amount of questions and tell the system to only pull X amount of questions at random. So that way, every student is getting an individualized quiz. Everyone's got something a little different. One, it kind of keeps students on their toes as far as studying goes, and it also is another cheating deterrent because no one's going to have the same quiz. I know personally when I gave exams in my face-to-face courses, I always printed out, 3 or 4 different versions of the exam. This eliminates the need for that. So another way that this is making life easier for you. So let's go to our chapter 4 questions. And let's say that I just want all 25 of these questions. I'll go to select all, come back to my add checked to, add it to a new pool, and I'll call this, chapter 4. And let's say that I want them to have to answer 10 questions out of that pool of 25. You can now see that under my review and modify tab, I had 29 questions before. Now it's showing 39 because I added those additional 10. And if we scroll down to the bottom here, you can see now here's my pool where it will list all of the possible questions, but you see the note that it's randomly testing on 10 questions from 25 possible choices. And again, done editing, bam. We are all done. Your test is ready to go for your students. So in LaunchPad, we really do want to make quizzing and testing as easy for you as possible. Hopefully that's what you were able to see today. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Amy, and we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Heather. So I've unmuted the line. If anybody would like to ask a question, please feel free. Otherwise, I did have a couple that came through the question box that I can share. Okay. Okay, so the first question, Heather, that we got in the question box is whether this works with Blackboard, and if so, how does it work as far as grades showing up?
Awesome, great question. So at many schools, we do offer what's called deep integration with Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, Brightspace, or Moodle. And what that does is the instructor first goes into LaunchPad and selects what activities they want the student to do, be it building a quiz or test or one of our many other options in there. You then go into your LMS course, your Blackboard course, and set up links out to each of the activities you want your students to do within LaunchPad. And the nice thing about this then is it provides your students with a really seamless experience. Our content lives right alongside any other content that you've already built in your course. So students will see the link for the Chapter 3 quiz, they click on it, and it takes them right into the quiz within LaunchPad where they complete it. And then here's the benefit to you as the instructor. The score they get on that quiz will then transfer back into your LMS gradebook as well. So a really nice and easy process for both you and students.
Okay, great. And then the second question is from somebody who has used LaunchPad. And the question is, I have used Learning Curve quizzing. If I build a new test, does it use the same questions?
Oh, great question. So the Learning Curve question pool and the test bank question pool are two completely different test banks. They were written by different sets of instructors. So while of course there's going to be overlapping content, you can only ask, you have to ask about thesis statements, they're going to be worded different, and it won't be sort of the identical phrasing and everything like that. And also worth noting that, feel free to assign quizzing along with Learning Curve. As we discussed in our first week of these webinars, Learning Curve was designed to be used as a pre-lecture activity. So if you want students to come to class having read Chapter 3, assign Chapter 3 and the Learning Curve. Then students come to class prepared, you do your lecture activities, discussions, and if you'd like, then you can assign the quiz as sort of a chapter post test. And hopefully by that point, students are going to do really well on it because they've interacted with the content so much. So certainly feel free to use them in tangent with each other.
Okay, those are all the questions I have. So unless anybody else wants to pipe up, we will wrap this up. So we have just a few ways that you can follow up on what we have discussed today. You'll see those up on the screen now. If you would like to take a closer look at creating quizzes in LaunchPad, or look or learn about any other digital resources that we have for communication, you can use this first website listed here, meetme.so/Heather Kimball, to schedule time with Heather. It'll just take you to her online calendar. You pick a day and time that works for you. It's as simple as that, and you can set up a time with Heather. I would highly recommend it. She is a wonderful resource. If you would like to browse our catalog, you can go to the second website listed here, macmillanlearning.com/communication, and you will find all of our communication books and digital products organized by course. And lastly, if you would like to learn more about LaunchPad on your own, you can go to launchpadworks.com, this highlighted URL kind of in the middle, and you will find demo videos and case studies. You can request access to LaunchPad on that page by browsing around to find your course, and then you can just take a look at that at your leisure. And then for anything else, any other questions, if you need a desk copy of something, if you don't know who your Macmillan rep is, or anything else you'd like to know about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is here on the bottom of the screen, amy.haynes@macmillan.com. I am happy to answer your questions or point you in the right direction to get what you need. And then last but not least, I will make a plug for the remaining week of our webinars. Heather mentioned this earlier, that we are going to be having some course-specific sessions next week. So there will be 4 unique sessions. Each one will be looking at resources in LaunchPad, but just in a particular course. So one for Mass Comm, one for interpersonal, one for the Human Intro Comm course, and one for public speaking. Those will also get recorded and sent out to anybody who registers, or certainly who attends. And then I also included here the first 2 weeks of sessions that we did here in blue. This came up in the question portion. The Learning Curve that we covered in the first week is our adaptive quizzing tool. It's really powerful. If you're not familiar with it, I think it would be worth your time to check it out. And then we looked the second week at our Go React video assessment program in LaunchPad that allows for video feedback and really cool tools for uploading and grading and commenting. So if you are interested in the recorded sessions for either of those, I can help you with that if you shoot me an email. You can also type in a question while we're still on the phone. And then if you want to sign up for any of the sessions next week, this highlighted URL in the bottom left of the screen, the tiny.cc com spring training will take you to the page where you can sign up. You can also find that registration link in the original emails that you received about today's session. So with that, I will thank you for your time today. We're glad you came, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Have a great weekend.